Welcome to Made for Mondays, the source for digging a little deeper into the Believers Church Sunday messages and finding ways to apply them to our daily lives. Together, let's take a deeper look and find a way to bring Mondays back to life.
Hello, everyone.
Hey there, Rochelle.
Hey.
What's up?
Welcome to the pod. So glad you're here. Who's here with me today?
This is Jamie.
Hey, Jamie.
Nice to see you.
You too.
My name is Doug.
Liz.
Doug Less. Oh no.
Doug West?
Yeah, Doug Moore, as Jeremy says now.
Doug Moore
Doug
in
Moore.
24.
I like it.
I'm just Tyler.
Hey,
That's all I
Tyler.
What's up?
Good to see you.
Good to see
Yay.
you.
So glad you guys are joining us today. How was your weekend?
So I'm getting ready to go on vacation. I'm leaving this week, the end of this week, to go on vacation. And so I'm in full on get everything done before I get out of town. So all I pretty much did is work all weekend because I've got things to get done.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Did have some friends over for games and speedies on Friday.
Oh,
Speedies?
what's a speedy?
Sorry.
See,
Yeah.
what's
Yeah.
a speedy? I knew that would generate that. A speedy is a regional New York thing.
Okay.
Started at the New York State Fair, however long ago, back in the 1800s at some point. But it's basically a speedy is a marinade that goes on. Traditionally, it was diced lamb, and you marinate it, put it on skewers, take it off with a slice of Italian bread, and eat it like a sandwich, like that.
Oh.
But they also do chicken, pork, and we do it with chicken primarily. And we'll do it every couple, 3 times a year. You can buy the marinade now at Food Lion.
Oh.
Oh wow.
So, used to be I would have to mail off to something, a Speedy Pit, which is restaurants that sell Speedies. They're called Speedy Pits.
It's a whole thing.
It's a whole thing.
Oh, wow.
And you could order online like a Speedy Survival Kit, and they would mail you the marinade and skewers and all this stuff. But now you can get, like I said, you can get it at Food Lion. But there's a Speedy Fest I'm going to this
Speedy
August.
Fest is
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, so
That's pretty huge.
it's one of our favorite go-to have people over kind of meals.
Yeah,
because
that's
it's just
so
unique.
fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
you get to learn all about this New
Yeah, you
York
get to learn all about the
culture.
culture of Binghamton, New York.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Is Speedy Gonzalez like the mascot?
it should be, but
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah, maybe you can
I like
introduce
that
that.
now.
Very cool. And you guys are is this board games that you
Yeah,
played?
yeah, we were
Yeah.
playing. I think it's called Aggravation. It's a little bit like Sorry. But it's just
Yeah.
a board game. It was a lot of fun. Had a good
Nice.
time.
That's cool. Yeah, board games are like having this resurgence right now. Everybody's getting into board games.
Oh, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but there's some there's some really fun ones like Aggravation and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you want to go into the deep dive, there's like board games that are closer to like role playing and stuff like that. It's very
Oh, are you trying to sneak in some Dungeons and Dragons?
No,
or
it's a gateway into it, but they're very fun. Yeah, so look into it.
a
There you go.
gateway, a gateway board game?
Settlers of Catan. If you haven't played
Oh
it,
boy, Settlers.
my wife and I will destroy you. So
Okay,
that's
I admit, I love that game.
okay.
It's a very fun
It's
game.
a
What's the
really
game?
fun game.
Settlers of Catan. We just call it Settlers,
Yeah,
but
No, never heard of it.
it's
a
pretty
lot of
fun.
You want to do a quick rundown of Settlers?
I mean, I could, but I don't know if we have time for that.
To me, it feels like the board game version of what Oregon Trail was.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot
Sorta.
of us loved Oregon Trail because that was like
It's
the
like-
OG.
I guess the best way I could put it is if you take Monopoly and Risk and put those together, that's Settlers.
Yeah.
Less time, but a little more skill than Monopoly, I think. It's not as random.
Okay.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
pretty fun.
Huh.
Yeah.
Pretty fun game.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm learning things. It's good.
Yeah. What'd you guys do this weekend?
You want to talk about Settlers?
I could do that all day.
Yeah.
But this weekend, so baby is a little bit bigger than what was previously thought. So they're thinking he might be coming a little earlier
Really?
than we thought. So I kind of had a little freak out mode because we didn't have any bottles ready and all that
Oh,
stuff.
no.
So I was like, all right, this is all got to be done. So we did all that this weekend, like
Wow.
bottles, make sure everything's washed, room's good, all that
Wow.
stuff. So
Nice. Did you
getting
pack
real.
the bag?
it's getting real.
Yeah.
We pack a bag.
You packed the bag?
Baby's bag is ready.
Nice.
Lakrina, we gotta get her bag ready.
Yeah.
And then we'll be good. Wow. Do I really need anything?
You
I just show
don't,
up.
no.
Yeah, I was gonna
You
say
show
I just show up.
up.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Yeah, you just got to be there.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
It was funny because Annabelle came a little bit early, our first child, and we were having a baby shower like the next weekend where we would get our car seats and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So Annabelle came early, and we were in the hospital. And the nurse was like, okay, so these are the checkout kind of things. Make sure you have these things ready in a couple days. You guys can take your baby home. And one of them was a car seat. I was like, oh, no, we don't have a car seat yet. And just in the busyness of everything, we had totally forgotten that the baby shower was going to be the time that we get the car seat. So I had to run out to the store, buy a car seat really quick, bring it back while everybody else was at the hospital. So little things like that, man. Little things you don't really think about. But it's,
You have a car seat in the car?
We do.
All right.
Nice.
We do. So that's been good.
Found one.
Yeah.
Oh, in Karina's car.
Yes, in Karina's car.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So my truck won't fit a car seat.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so we're trying to figure that out. So,
Yeah, you're going to have to sell that truck.
Man.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Man.
So,
All right.
but
Yes.
so we're at.
Yay.
Well, I mean, there's a truck bed.
True. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah.
Strap it down.
Right.
Oh, yeah, wrap it
Truck
down. You know.
Right. Yeah.
I didn't think of that. I'll have to run that by Karina.
Yeah,
See
run it
what
by
she
her, see what she says. Yeah. How about you, Rochelle? I know you had a hairy weekend.
Oh yes, it was a very fun, full weekend despite car stuff. But yeah, we did like pool time. We had a play date at Fort Monroe, and it was incredible because I've gone several times. It's my favorite beach, but I didn't realize there were like several spots all the way down the shore that you can go to. So we went to one that was sort of set up like the way the tide comes in. It was like a little kiddie pool almost, a huge one, and then the kids could like wade all the way out into the ocean. It was really fun. Such a good time. And then we had basketball again this weekend. Oh my.
How'd week 2 go?
Hilarious. It was good. So it's so cool because you're already seeing the progress. Like we have one who cried the entire time on the bench last week. And this week he came with his dad onto the court. So that was a big step forward. And then my favorite part was we're deep into the game. I think there was like 5 minutes left, and this little boy comes in and he runs on the court, and his sister's like, go baby, play. And I was like, I don't know this child. And he's got the uniform, and he's just
really?
like starts playing. Yeah, just jumps in the game. And I was like, excuse me, what is your child's name? And then she said his name, and I was like, yeah, he's not on our team. And it
How'd
was
he get a
this whole
jersey?
thing. He was on a different team that was playing at a totally different time. So they kind of do, every team gets like blue and white jerseys, and then they switch home or away colors based on who you're playing that day. So yeah, this kid like didn't check in anything, just runs on and starts playing.
And he's your star player.
Sorry, yeah, he was actually really good.
Sucks, the kid.
Hey,
Yes.
Yeah.
So it was really fun. Jerry and I have just so much fun because he's like the sports guy,
Yeah.
and I'm like the kids lady, and so together it's just such a good time.
That's
so,
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Really great weekend. Yeah. How about you?
It was just pretty chill this weekend. We didn't really do much. Our group went on a hike on Saturday morning. That was really fun, and it was just kind of relaxing. My kids want to play more Minecraft, so we were playing a lot of Minecraft over the weekend. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Just resting and kind of just spending time with the family.
Aw, rest is so nice.
Yeah, it's very, very important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're looking towards one of those weekends where we have nothing to do.
Yeah.
Soon, hopefully. So
After
that'll
basketball
be nice.
season.
Yes, after basketball.
you
Yeah.
go.
So we are in our Bible reading plan.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd love to chat through what are some of the things that have stuck out to you either from last week's reading or what we started reading today.
Yeah, so today was the crucifixion and the resurrection. It was a pretty long section, 27 and 28 of Matthew. But I love Matthew 28. It was that was like the go-to missionary passage, and I had that thing drilled into me for a long time. That's why I was a missionary. So yeah, I love the resurrection chapters, and
Yeah.
it was good. I was excited to get to the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Now, recently, I don't know why, but what's been sticking with me is just like Judas, just
Yeah.
with Jesus, his relationship with Judas, that Judas, whatever reason, he didn't believe Jesus was the Messiah or whatever that was, that whole deal, and what he did to Jesus, and then his remorse and what he chose to do with himself afterwards, and like the mirror of Peter, and like just like getting into like all that. And I'm just like, wow, Jesus knew who he was, what he was going to do, and he still like loved him, you know?
Yeah.
I guess just how powerful the love of Jesus is.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
just, it's incredible. So I don't know. That's just been sticking with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. If we could just get better at loving people who are hard to love.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so
Great
good.
example.
Yeah, I love at the end, and it's like the last couple weeks kind of bringing it all together, how quick everything falls apart with that group of people. So you have like Peter denying Jesus and people scatter, and then it seems like everything is disbanded.
Yeah.
And then Jesus rises from the dead, and he brings them back together so quickly as well.
Yeah.
So like everything looks like it's okay, and then they face this huge struggle, and everybody falls apart. And then Jesus brings them back together just as quick.
Yes.
And I love that because even like Peter, as he's kind of like reinstated in a sense to the ministry, like, I don't know, I just feel like everything happens so fast there because of what Jesus is able to do. And he's able to bring people back together. There's that reconciliation that could overcome any kind of fear or shame or guilt or anything. So yeah, I just love that. I think sometimes I focus on the falling apart. Like, oh yeah, they all failed and they all messed up big time. But then I kind of leave out the whole bringing them back together aspect too, which is so very inspiring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is.
Yeah. This week, I'm so excited to dig into this because I sort of had that thing where there are things I focus on every time I read this passage. But this time, there are so many things that stood out to me that I was like, I'm sorry, what? What? So I'm just going to share a few of them with you
Yeah.
because I'm in a room full of Bible scholars and
One.
at least one. There's a few things. I was like, can we go back to that? So verse 51 of 27, there's like a zombie apocalypse vibe that happens.
Oh,
like
yeah.
all
Yeah,
these
that's a
other people
wild
come
scene.
back too.
Yeah, that is pretty wild.
It is.
What's up with that?
I wish I knew.
I wish I did. It's
Yeah.
a wild thing.
That is wild, and it never it doesn't even get talked
They
about
just-
at all. It's
they
just
just
like
keep rolling.
it's mentioned and just keep on going.
Yeah.
incredible.
I'm like, so
Yeah,
other
all these people bust out of their grave.
came back.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know. I had to reread it, but I don't know if it even like specifies if it's like glorified body resurrection,
I don't think
or
it
if it's
does.
like a Lazarus kind of resurrection.
Yeah.
Like they rose from the dead, but
Yeah,
they
my
still have their
impression
earthly
has always
bodies.
been the Lazarus
More
thing.
Lazarus.
Yeah.
That's what, yeah.
Yeah, because Jesus hasn't risen from the dead yet.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
he died, and then the earth shakes, and these people come out of the tomb.
Right.
Yeah, so it's not like he's the first fruits of the life after death, not these people just yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's that.
Super weird.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
so
Great question, Rochelle.
not the only one. Okay.
Yeah. What else?
Okay. No. So then I was like, this part about Pilate's wife, and she's like, "Hey, leave that dude alone," because he was like messing with me in my dreams.
Yep.
She's referring to Jesus. And then,
Yeah, it's just that I think she's having these dreams that he's far more significant. I think is kind of the idea, right? So that she's troubled enough that she's like, "Yeah, you should drop
Yeah. Let
this
him
whole
go.
thing."
Yeah.
Wow. So that's so interesting because then
Yeah.
I wonder, well, what happened with her story? Because obviously it didn't go in her
Yeah,
her
well,
favor.
she was able to say, as all women do, "I told you so."
Yeah.
That was that.
Oh yeah. Beautiful
always nice.
redemption.
That's in Matthew 29. Yeah.
It's even better as the woman in the room. It's even better when we don't even have to say it. When we just be like,
Right.
It's
That's
so
it.
nice. One more, the last one I'll share today. The wine tasting. So Jesus tastes the wine, and it has gall. Was it gall? What do they call it? That stuff in it. And
Yeah.
I was
like-
like, "What's that?" He tastes it, and then he spits it out. I was interested in what that moment was like.
Yeah, it's like a vinegar, like a bitter herb kind of wine. So it wasn't like a good like wedding kind of wine. It was like
Yeah.
a bitter kind of taste.
So that was almost like more torture.
Yeah, so my understanding is like they would give them something just to kind of quench their thirst, just to kind of help them get through the execution.
Okay.
But this was like, it wasn't supposed to be pleasant either. But Jesus, even when he was at the Last Supper, he said, "I'm not going to drink from the vine again until," I think, what does he say? Until I come back.
Yeah,
Or
or
until
not
the
until my
resurrection
kingdom, I
Land,
think.
yeah.
Yeah.
Something around
So it's almost like he wasn't going to drink the wine again until everything was fulfilled. So this wasn't like a interrupting that kind of fulfillment, but
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. But he spit it out, so
Oh yeah.
I mean maybe he was like, "Oh no, I forgot I wasn't drinking."
I told the disciples. They're watching. Oh, they weren't there, so he's good.
Yeah.
They all fled.
Tyler, do you have any?
I would say I'm trying to think. I can't remember if this is because I know they would give them something to dull the pain.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what that was. my
Yeah,
understanding
that's
too.
what I. Yeah, I can't. But there was another point where he did he did it to fulfill some prophecy at some point.
Was in like an Isaiah or something?
Yeah, I can't. It's two scenes in the gospel. I can't remember which one is which, but yeah. So one of them is that to dull the pain.
Okay. So maybe rejecting it was like an acceptance of I'm carrying this fully, this burden and this pain that I have to walk through fully.
Yeah.
I have to go to Got Questions on that one.
Take
It's got me curious.
Yay. Oh, cool. All right. I feel like, all
Yeah.
right, I had
That's a good question.
very
I gotta look
solid.
more into
decent
that whole.
questions.
Yeah, these are good.
Okay.
Yeah, especially
well,
like for Matthew, because like Matthew, there's a good chance a lot of it is like speaking to a Jewish audience. So it's
Yeah.
probably like some fulfillment, Old Testament kind of covenant stuff. They're like looking for these things to take place.
Yeah.
To see if Jesus really is the Messiah. Matthew's like, yeah, like look at all these things that happened. He is the one that you've been looking for.
yeah.
So it's got to be
I love
that.
Something like that.
Yeah. I'm excited to see what we discover
Yeah.
as we dig into those a little more. All right, so it is time for What the Wah Ha
That was good.
That was really good.
Thank you.
I don't want to say better than Heather's, but
I don't want to say that.
but better.
She's not here right
Just
now.
try and make her proud.
Yeah.
That's always
okay.
my
That was really good.
tactic. So we have one today.
We do.
I haven't done one of these in maybe
So this
ever.
was full disclosure. This was sent a couple weeks ago, and it was the question was asked, and they were wondering if we could deal with it on the Q&R panel.
Oh, cool.
And we didn't get to the Q&R panel, but we were going to tackle it on the pod. And then last week when we were doing the pod, I thought about the question, but I didn't have it with me, so I couldn't bring it up. So we're a couple weeks behind on this one, but we are
Yeah.
finally getting to
Yeah.
it.
Here we are. All right, here we go. So, good morning, all. I had a topic that I was curious if you all had time to explore at the Q&R service. I was listening to the audiobook. I'm in the same ballpark with that. Too Busy Not to Pray by Bill Hybels.
Can't mention him anymore, but go ahead.
Oh, I mean, by
I'm just kidding.
maybe someone recommended it at the church. Anyway, I have frayed relationships with my parents and siblings and have been praying that God does blank for them, help them stay sober, use reason, be less self-centered, etc. In the book, Bill discusses that our prayers may not be getting answered because we aren't praying for the right things. I have changed my prayer to God help me to be and implement to improve my relationships with my family. I was curious if you could talk about how we can use our prayer life effectively to mend bridges in our families. You all are incredible. Chris.
Yes.
I don't know
Thanks,
if that was
Chris.
supposed to be
What,
Yes.
what a great question. And I love that. First of all, that was a really good book. It's an older book, but still most likely it's hard to find Hybels books on Amazon anymore, but you might be able to do the Amazon thing or the audio thing like Chris did. I'm not sure. But it was a really good book on prayer. And even though it's dated, prayer's kind of dated too. Like prayer goes way back. So I think the principles that are from it are still pretty relevant today. And what Chris has hit upon is something that I just love around the whole idea of prayer. And that is, I think oftentimes we do pray for outcomes, and we're praying like it's almost magic spelling on other people. Do this in them, change this in them, make this happen.
Yeah.
And I think prayer, a more effective prayer is it's God working in us to shape us and make us what we're supposed to be. And so, the prayer around change my heart to be the peacemaker in these relationships, give me wisdom on how to navigate these tensions that are present, I think is a far more effective prayer because you're not praying like you have zero. Obviously, God could overpower someone's will and reason, but he almost never does.
Yeah.
So, the prayer that God would magically change someone else, I just think is one of those prayers like I get it on the one hand, but on the other hand, I'm not sure it's the most fruitful, effective way to pray. But a really great way to pray is, God, show me how I can be changed and different, and allow the Holy Spirit to work in you to be the agent of change in those relationships. So I just love the change of focus in prayer. And I've said this many times, but like often probably the prayer I pray the most is the prayer for wisdom and knowing how to navigate difficult situations, relational situations, I think is a really great way to pray through. And if we believe that the Holy Spirit is active and alive, then he can shape our thoughts and give us discernment and help us apply teachings of Scripture in ways that can hopefully improve strained relationships.
Yeah. That's so good.
Anyone else?
Yeah.
That's so good.
I
I
mean-
I definitely have that issue in my family, as I'm sure everybody else does
Yeah,
too.
sure.
And
Yeah.
like what Jamie was saying, especially even like as Chris is saying it towards the end, it's like help me to be the
Yes.
implement to improve my
Yep.
relationship with my family. Like that's
Such
so
a good
huge.
prayer.
Because man, I had been praying prayers similar to what you were mentioning before of help change them, help
Yep.
make them whatever, and that's just not as effective as you said. But God changed me and help, because y'all people who've listened to me talk before know I'm an introvert. I can stay away, stay in the cave, and not reach out. But God changing my heart to want to reach out, to want to engage and do those things.
Yeah.
Even though it's not always successful, doesn't always work out perfectly, but over time it has, even in my specific circumstance, has helped. And
Yes.
it's been healing. So
Yeah.
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 And I think, too, that whole concept was really reinforced in your response on the panel to dealing with, I know they mentioned specifically for someone to stay sober,
Yeah.
that response of even getting involved in something like a support group
Yeah.
that is going to help you to
Right.
change how you are approaching the situation.
Yeah. How you're interacting with the addict.
Yeah. And I
Yep.
think that for me, I like to also pray like God's will be done in someone's life. If I'm feeling like really the need to pray over them, I try and stop myself from saying like this turn out and this turn out all the time, because
Right.
sometimes God's allowing them to walk through something that is shaping them for their call in their life.
Yeah.
And I might not choose that for them. That happens a lot,
Yeah, no,
actually.
that's really
Or I'm
good.
like, I wouldn't want you to bear that, but
Yeah.
but that is in God's will for you
Yeah.
to have those muscles built up. So yeah, praying
Yeah,
like
that's a really good
God's
thought.
will be done. And I also, it stood out to me yesterday that you talked about the verse that says God's will is that we be holy. So
Yeah.
like really these behaviors kind of,
Yep.
as we move towards holiness, kind of smooth out, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good transition too.
Oh, yes. Speaking of holy, 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 holy. Do y'all know that song?
Oh yeah, it's a great song.
So good. I wanted to sing that every time I was up yesterday. So this week we kicked off this new series, Holy, Holy, Holy.
Yeah.
And we talked about holiness is dangerous.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. I almost read from Chronicles of Narnia.
Oh, cool.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, where Aslan he's anything but safe.
Yeah, yeah.
Remember that line?
Yeah, that's such a
Yeah.
good little part of
I'm
the
glad. I'm kind of.
Yeah.
Are you-
I'll tell you offline.
Are you doing that?
I'm using a little bit of that.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Well, I didn't know that, so
Yeah.
that's great. Yeah, I almost did that. I was like,
Okay.
man, that's
Good. 'Cause I don't know how you do it. It's such a good.
such a
oh,
good little segment of that. Aslan being representative of Jesus in the Chronicles. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the kids are asking, is he safe? Yeah, he's
Yeah.
anything but safe.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
that's the
good.
holiness of God. It's anything but safe.
So
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, we're looking forward to seeing more of that
Yeah.
as the series goes on. So at the beginning of this week's message, you talked about how culture puts a negative spin on the word holy. So can you give us a little insight to the team's decision to dive into this topic of holiness?
Yeah, I think this was a series idea that Doug floated, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it might have been.
I believe so. So our teaching team, that's kind of how we do this. So in August, our teaching team's going to get together and try to plan out our teaching calendar for 2025. And so last year, right around this time, we would have been laying out 2024. And so everyone comes to the table with their ideas for series, and some make it, some don't. And then we try to fit them to where they kind of flow best and work best. And Doug brought this idea of holy, holy, holy. And I think part of it was just simply, it is a topic that rarely gets really discussed, and it's, I think, largely misunderstood culturally. You know, as I mentioned yesterday, it's often used as a derogatory term, and in the church, I think it gets used a lot without a lot of understanding of what it actually is. And so there's even like holiness movements and holiness denominations that are out there. So there's a lot of confusion around what is it actually. And so that was just our thought, to try to shed a little more light on this topic that is kind of important. Like Peter says in 1 Peter chapter 1, now you must be holy in everything you do, just as God who chose you is holy. For the scriptures say, you must be holy because I am holy. Well, if we're to be holy in everything we do, then we better understand what it is, right? So, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So this week we looked at one of the characteristics of holiness, that it's dangerous. Dun, dun, dun. So I don't think this is something like an adjective we often think about when we think about holiness. I certainly have not. Yet you gave us a pretty clear picture that it certainly is. You walked us through the story of Uzzah.
Uzzah.
Yeah. Uzzah. That's how I get through things.
I said Uzzah, but it might be Uzzah. I'm not sure.
Uzzah.
Yeah.
I like it. And the ark. That was quite a story. So I'd like to just spend some time talking through this story together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, the gist of the story is the Philistines had stolen the ark from Israel, took it out of the temple as part of their looting the nation after a battle. And so God's presence, which is symbolized by that ark, is removed from Israel, which would have been a terrible insult to the nation. And Philistines have it for a little while. Things aren't going well for the Philistines, so they're like, we need to get rid of this thing. So somehow it ends up at Abinadab's house. They just kind of push it over the Israel state line, and walk away. And Abinadab has it at his house for like a long time. It's there for like 20 years.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he has like carport over it or what, or if it's just sitting out in the elements. I'm not really sure what the deal was with that. But King David decides that it's time to bring the ark back to Jerusalem, where it belongs, in the temple. And so they go to get it, and they put it on a cart, and they start to cart it towards home. And Uzzah is walking behind the cart, and the mule or the whatever,
The
oxen stumbles. And it probably was an oxen, not a mule. I'm going to have a donkey.
That's pretty big.
The Ark of the Covenant, that doesn't sound right. So the oxen stumbles, and the ark looks like it's about to slide off the cart. Uzzah does what any of us would have done, reaches out to steady the ark, and zap, he's dead.
Whew.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's dangerous.
Wow, story.
Even though, like, the way the passage says it, like God's anger burned against Uzzah.
Yeah.
And like he's angry at him.
Yeah.
For trying to stop this thing from falling over.
Yeah, what would have happened if it had fallen out?
Everybody would have died, I guess. It would not have been good.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been good.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, so that's the danger side. I had someone reach out to me and say, if there was more to the story, then it was to be carried rather than carted. I don't know. I don't know if there's more to that story or not. I do think, I think part of that story is that if God is holy, he sets the terms for how we approach him. I really do think it's that. I'm not sure that there is more to it than that. Maybe there is. This person said he's going to dig around and see what he can find. I said, let me know what you find.
I don't think so. Because like you say, if they're priests, their job is to know how to handle the presence of God, like how to do all those steps. That's what like you said, Leviticus is for all of that.
Yeah.
So if David says, hey, let's do it this way, even if he's king, it's like, hey, David, the
We
scriptures
can't do
say
it this
this,
way.
we can't do it this way.
Right.
Yeah.
And they did it anyway. So
Yeah.
it's,
And Uzzah was Uzzah.
I don't know.
Uzzah was a priest.
yeah.
So I at first thought, well, maybe he got zapped because he wasn't a priest, and only the priests are supposed to handle the ark, but it turns out he is. He is a Levite.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that. He may have been ceremonially unclean. That's a possibility, because you had to do that before you could come into God's presence. But whatever it is, we should not take lightly this idea of coming into the presence of God, which is really, I mean, we'll get to it in a little bit, but that's really what makes what Jesus came to do so amazing. Like in the Old Testament, the high priest would go into the Holy of Holies and would have a bell at the bottom of his robe, so like it would be dinging as he's working around the altar. And if it stopped dinging, he had a rope tied around his leg. They would drag him out, assuming that something must have happened, but they're not going to go in and get him because that would be dangerous.
Yes.
So they're going to drag him out. Like that's how fearful it was to go into the presence of God. So even the high priest, if he had a medical emergency in front of the altar, they're not going in to get him. They're dragging him out of there.
Wow.
So like it's just kind of interesting, right? So like, and then Jesus says, you can just march right in there. That's the contrast between what we're seeing in the Old Testament and what we see in the New Testament. And it's not because the rules changed. It's because Jesus fulfilled everything that was required in the Old Testament. The requirement's still the same.
Yeah.
It's just that Jesus has fulfilled that. And I know we'll get to that in a little bit, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it really is weird how drastically different our approach is compared to back then.
Right.
Yeah.
Like if that kind of sacrificial system was still in place today, would we appreciate what Jesus did for us a little bit more? Right. Just because we haven't grown up seeing this other side.
Yeah.
And the contrast of it, we've always known the Jesus approach.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if we had the other side, would we appreciate it more, I wonder?
Yeah.
And maybe not take it so lightly.
So you can pop in Leviticus, man. I know many Bible reading plans have died
Yeah.
when they get to Leviticus.
I just slowed down.
But if you can read it, man, it just shows like the level of detail. I
yeah.
think just makes you appreciate it.
Yeah.
Jesus so much more.
Yeah.
So true.
Can you guys think of other passages that highlight the dangerous holiness of God?
Oh, yeah.
Oh man, that's a great question. I wish I would have had that before I came in here, because the thing that happened in the Raiders of the Lost Ark where their faces get melted off.
Yeah.
At first I was like, that's a Hollywood thing, but then I was reading around some of the Leviticus stuff, and something like that actually, very similar to that, actually happened.
Look at that.
Yeah, so
Wow.
it may have been when the Philistines had it. I can't remember, but I was reading around that when I was prepping for this message, and I took that line out of my message because I was like, it's actually not very Hollywood. Hollywood was actually, for once, pretty accurate with what was happening in Scripture. Like it was a dangerous thing to. So if you just search, like if you did a Google search for when the Philistines had the Ark of the Covenant, where's that in the Bible?
Yeah.
If you go to that passage and read through it, you'll read some of those things.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think of I think it's Isaiah 6 with the seraphim, these incredibly powerful angels flying around God, covering their faces because they can't look at him.
Yeah.
Like if they can't look at him, we can't. Like it's you got Moses being put in the rock, or as God's glory passes by.
Yeah.
Like things like that. Like can't look at, and he can only look at the. That's a weird story too. Not weird, but it's just like he can only look at the back of the glory of God because he can't look at his like the full
glory.
complete. Yeah. Like it's. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't think of any more.
Yeah, I think Moses to me is the standout one. Like even him going up on the mountain to commune with God, like to a point where Israel's waiting for him. He's up there for a long time, and they assume he died.
Yeah.
Like he's been up there for this long.
Like
He's
40
got to
days.
be dead.
40
He
days.
probably
40 days, yeah.
he did something, and God's mad at him, so they start like partying down at the bottom of the mountain and stuff.
Yeah.
So and his face was glowing because he was kind of seeing God. He had to like veil his face so that it wouldn't stand out and weird people out.
Yeah.
So yeah, just that very image, like he's with God so often, his face is glowing, and it was dangerous. He could only look at his heel as he passed by. Else he would have been like killed as well.
Wow.
Like really interesting.
Yeah. There's my sister was showing me these videos that are going around where they're saying, comparing what we have sort of used as illustrations for different beings, like angels and the cherubim and that sort of stuff, versus how they're actually described in the Bible. And looking at that, it's terrifying.
Yes.
So you look at what an angel really looks like, and you're like, this is an angel, and he's below God. And just even thinking of that, how like grand and holy he is, we can't even like use that as portraying our angels in our everyday culture because it's so massive and grand. So yeah, that makes me think of his holiness. So you asked the obvious question: if only someone who is holy or ceremonial clean can approach God, then what about us? That brings us to Jesus. Holiness with skin on.
Yeah.
How does Jesus transfer holiness to the marginalized?
Yeah, spiritually, we're all the marginalized, really, because we're all in the same boat. You know, none of us measure up to this standard to be able to come into God's presence. So, like in that sense, like we're all the marginalized, and yeah, it's kind of like what happened in the Old Testament where God's presence was, and it spreads like the bush, and it spreads to the ground around it. Like God is the source of holiness. So wherever he is, it is holy. You can't take away the holiness of God. So like Uzzah touches something in an unworthy way, it doesn't make the ark unclean. He gets the holiness of God from the ark is what takes him out. And that's this idea of like Jesus is born as God in the flesh. The angel says he is holy. He will be holy when he's born. So he comes into this world, and just like God's presence in the Old Testament spreads holiness everywhere it goes, Jesus, being God, spreads his holiness everywhere he goes. And so like you see the miracles of Jesus, they are in essence holiness leaving Jesus and touching these people and making people who are unclean and unworthy worthy, clean, and whole, so that they are restored not only relationally to him but relationally to others. And that is the mission of Jesus. Everywhere he goes, you see what happens as holiness spreads.
Yeah.
And that's our mission, to take the holiness, that we are to be holy so that the holiness of God can restore the things around us. I mean, that's the very mission that we have.
Yeah.
It is. It makes me I was thinking like the other day of like, especially when you talked about the Holy of Holies, this incredibly holy place behind this curtain, but then after Jesus is crucified, like the curtain is gone. It's destroyed. And so this that just speaks so much more of what Jesus has accomplished on our behalf, that we can. Like this holy place that they got a bell on the guy's robe that no one's afraid to go in there, but now it's gone, and we can enter into God's presence
boldly,
just boldly. Yes,
Right.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just thought of this, like the similarities between the story of Uzzah and the woman who was bleeding.
Yeah.
So Uzzah goes up and touches it almost like instinctively, like I need to protect this thing. And the woman goes up to Jesus and approaches him instinctively.
Yes.
I need to be healed, and I've heard this guy heals people.
Yeah.
And she approaches the temple, like Jesus is the temple. She approaches the temple boldly and touches his robe in a way that some might have been a little bit fearful. Like, if I touch his robe, am I going to be struck dead?
Yeah.
And she touches him and is healed. So I think that right there shows like the purpose that Jesus had.
Yes.
To heal, to bring Israel back to where they needed to be born again in all that sense.
Yeah.
And just to show, what the power of God's able to do.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
What a great contrast. I love that.
It is.
Yeah.
And I was thinking of the temple. God's presence dwelt there. This holy, otherworldly presence, and now He calls us His temple.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are that presence.
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah. New creation is here.
It is.
It's us.
Yeah.
So cool, right?
Yeah. It's like taking that moment to look at that juxtaposition and how just amazing he is, how holy he is, and then being chosen, it totally changes our perspective of how loved we are.
Yes.
Like, and he wants to be next to us when before we just wanted to be like dropping dead, but
Yeah.
he's like, no, I need to be next to you. It's just, it makes my heart so full. And I feel so loved thinking about it in that way. But usually it could be scary to approach these verses and these passages about his holiness. But yeah, on the other side is this grand love.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it helps me to like empathize a bit more with like the Pharisees, because like their understanding is this one way, like God's holiness is dangerous and Jesus is coming down and it looks like he's healing people, and it's so very different than maybe what they had experienced. So like I see that.
Yeah.
Like, no, this isn't the way things happen. This is very different and strange and unique, and I could see them being a little bit more cautious,
Touching a leper.
trusting in Jesus and
Right.
following him in that sense.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that, and the difficulty of like changing their mindset into what Jesus is claiming compared to what they knew.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be tough.
Yeah. Yeah. So the big idea was Jesus makes us holy to make us whole.
Yeah.
So, Jamie, will you read Hebrews 10:1 and 10 for us? And what are these verses? Why are they so important? These verses.
So Hebrews, can you get Hebrews 10,
yep.
10 open? I have 10:1. Says the old system under the law of Moses was only a shadow, a dim preview of the good things to come, not the good things themselves. The sacrifices under that system were repeated again and again, year after year, but they were never able to provide perfect cleansing for those who came to worship. And I'm going to read 2 just because it's not long and it completes the thought, I think. If they could have provided perfect cleansing, the sacrifices would have stopped, for the worshipers would have been purified once for all time, and their feelings of guilt would have disappeared. But their feelings of guilt didn't disappear, and their sins weren't gone for all time. That's why they had to keep going back and offer additional sacrifices. In verse 10?
Yeah, so verse 10, he says, and by that will we have been made holy through the sacrifice of the body of Jesus Christ once and for all.
Yeah.
And that will just being, God's will.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, what a contrast between the old system and the new. His will for us is that we be holy, that we be in relationship with Him, that we be restored, that we be whole. And the old way, old way of sacrifice isn't going to make you whole or holy. And the new version of that, which is legalism, is also not going to do it. Getting on a performance plan and ticking off all the boxes that you're doing all the right things. So there's a lot of people, they may not say that that's what they believe, but they're living as if they believe that their faith is somehow a performance plan or like an examination, like an exam that you have to pass in order to be holy before God. And that's just a complete, that version is not much different than the Old Testament version. To believe that I'm going to perform in such a way that God is pleased with me isn't much different than I'm going to sacrifice something so that I can be in God's presence. They're both jacked up wrong.
Yeah.
And that's not what God's plan is for us at all.
Yeah. And I think that this holiness, what our temptation is to get on that, I'm checking off the boxes and all that stuff, is there is change, I think, that happens in us.
For sure.
And we start to look more holy, but it's Him that does it. As we lean more into Him, we learn more about Him. We spend more time surrounded by other people who have accepted that holiness. And that leaves room for us to grow. He does the work. And then it also kind of squashes the reason why we would judge other people and assess their holiness.
Right.
Because we don't really have that to carry.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So theologian, author, and pastor Martin Lloyd-Jones once said that holiness is not something we're called upon to do in order that we may become something. It's something we are to be, or no, that we are to do because of what we already are.
Yeah.
So Jamie, you said becoming holy in our daily life is a process.
Yeah.
So what are some practical ways we can pursue holiness in our daily life?
Yeah, so it goes back to what you were just saying about this idea of, of course there are behaviors and changes in our life that happen because if the presence of God has invaded us, if we are now the temple, we are the holy agents in this society, then obviously there has to be, we can't just be the same old dirty, rotten people that we were, right? So there's got to be some kind of change that happens in us, but it's not our performance that's changing. It's the Holy Spirit shaping us and changing how we think, changing how we do. And it's not by trying harder. It's by surrendering more. So there's been a lot written recently, but there's been several things written recently. One, John Mark Comer's book, Practicing the Way. I just finished that a few weeks ago. It's such a good book. Emotionally Healthy Spirituality and Emotionally Healthy Discipleship by Peter Scazzaro. Also, really good books on this. Brother Lawrence, Practicing the Way. Practicing the Presence of God is another really great resource. And my favorite of all, John Ortberg, does a lot on all of those ideas of forming your life, forming your day, forming your schedule in such a way that that you are best positioned to allow the Holy Spirit to produce these changes in us that make us more holy. Rhythms of life, rules of life, as they were called a long time ago. These structures that we put in place that the danger is that a lot of these things can become legalism if we're not careful. But at the same time, we can't become holy without changing some of what we do, changing some of our practices. And so creating rhythms in our life that keep us before God and allow our hearts and minds to change it's the tried and tested way to become more holy in our daily practice. It's those things that we do that allow the Holy Spirit to get a better grip on our lives and affect these changes in us that need to happen. So He's the one that makes us holy, but we have to cooperate with it. I don't know if there's a better way to talk about that.
Yeah, that makes me think of we all have electricity running through our house, but you got to plug into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Even though we've invited it into our home, it's there. We sign the bill, but you got to plug in to access it to use it. Did you guys have any other specific ways that we can create those rhythms of opening ourselves up to the holiness?
Yeah, I think for me, it's just it's checking the motives behind things. Mm-hmm. So if I'm doing something and the motive is I want to make God happy, that's legalism.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this so that I can please God. And then so I'll be kind of in his good graces.
Yeah.
And that's not good. That's wrong because I'm already there. He's already completely happy with me. And I'm as righteous as I ever need to be right now.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of I'm going to do this to please God, I'm going to do this because he's pleased with me.
Yeah, totally.
Right?
Yeah.
Ooh.
And because he loves me.
Yeah.
And it's cool. When I changed my motivation behind I want to please God, so he's already pleased with me. And he loves me and he loves these other people too, then now I'm helping out because God loves them just as much as he loves me.
Yeah.
Like this person is honored and valued by God. And if I truly understand how much God values me, then it's going to help me value other people as well.
That's so good.
And I think that motive just changes what I do and why I do it.
Yeah.
And it's meditating on God's love for me. Jamie, you've said this before where often people will say, if we preach the gospel too much, it's shallow, right?
Right.
It's you're always talking about the gospel, shallow. We want depth.
Yep.
But there's so much depth to the gospel. God's
much.
love for me is
we'll
deeper
never
than the
wear it out.
ocean.
Yeah.
You'll never wear it out. I'll never fully understand that, and that's something I have to meditate on every single day, or else I fall into legalism.
I love that. Yeah. So I love that, and I just want to say it in a different way, just because I mean, I think what you said was super clear, but in my own mind, I just was thinking about this. So like now I'm going to serve someone else, or I'm going to love someone else, or I'm going to share the love of God with someone else, not so that God is more pleased with me, but because I know that God loves that person. I want to show God's love to that person because God loves that person.
Yeah.
So it's no longer about elevating me. It's just about spreading the love of God. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so good.
Yeah, it's almost like I remember getting gifts when I was a kid. Like I remember like when I got a Nintendo. It was like the best gift ever. Mm-hmm. And I so wanted to show all my friends. Not because I wanted to brag, look what I have that you don't have.
Yeah.
Or I have this toy, look how cool I am. But I wanted them to experience what I had experienced. This thing's really fun. We can play together. Come over to my house. Let's play Mario.
Yeah.
And it's fun because like when we see this gift that God has given us, we should be so filled with joy and gratitude that it just overflows in a sense of I want these other people to experience what I've experienced through what God has done for me. And it's just that realization of God's love will overflow into every other area of my life. So I can brag about it, not because look who I am, but look who God is.
Yeah.
Don't you want to know the same God who has changed my life so dramatically?
Yeah.
And that's exciting.
Yeah, so good.
Awesome. So good.
So good. All right. Nice. Well, any other final thoughts on our kickoff to Holy, Holy, Holy?
We have some really fun weeks coming up.
We do.
Yeah.
Tyler, you're teaching this coming Sunday?
Yeah. God's holiness is unmatched.
Unmatched.
I'm looking forward to. I got some funny pictures I'll be putting up. Well, just one, but I think people get a kick out of it.
Some
Nice.
pictures of you as a kid? Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome, dude. That's going to be fun.
Yes.
Good story. Hopefully it'll be a good story going with that. But
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And are you're
Yeah,
one
I'm
of
doing the
weeks,
last week, and it's about life changing. So I'm trying to look at how when you look at the life of Paul, how when he encountered Jesus, risen from the dead, like the holiness of God, it changed his life and what that actually looks like. So I'm trying to tackle that aspect.
Yeah.
Holiness of God is life changing if we allow it to be.
It's kind of what you were just talking about.
Yeah, it might be.
Your
I
life
might have that
changes.
right in there.
Yeah.
I'll add some of that to my
Yeah,
message.
go back and listen to this. Yes.
What did I say again? Here we go.
Awesome. Well, that was such a great conversation.
Yeah,
Thank you
so
guys for allowing me to be a part of it. That's all we have time for today. But as you heard, we're going to be continuing in this series. It's going to be so great this Sunday. And we have a seat for you and your guests.
Yes.
We'd love to have you there. There's a service at 9 and 10:45. And if you can't make it to that, we always have this available at 1 also on Sundays on YouTube. So thank you guys so much for being here. It's time for us all to go and be love.